Hello everybody. I'm gonna give you guys a couple of seconds to connect with me. I have tagged the people in the meetup group, and a few people requested to join us a little later than the time frame I gave, so some people will have to watch us on replay. But I'm hoping that you find this very, very helpful. If you are like me, then you have made real estate the choice, the vehicle of your lifestyle, your income, and everything else. Now, hi Sheena, I see you made it. Okay, so everybody that joins us, what happens is you're gonna watch me doing this training live. And for the people that are going to be watching this for the first time that don't know who I am, my name is Wendy Lovejoy, and I have been in the real estate industry about 28 years. Some of you know that I raised my children in real estate, and if you follow Real Estate is Power, he is somebody that I not only birthed on my birthday, but he is somebody that is very, very knowledgeable in the real estate industry, and he's doing some amazing things. My daughter in Atlanta is a real estate agent doing some amazing things, and I've trained quite a few people to become agents, brokers, real estate investors, wholesalers, people who fix and flip, how to buy and hold real estate, how to short-term as well as long-term, meaning that, you know, people can learn how to do Airbnb. There are so many opportunities in real estate. The one thing that you want to make sure you understand, though, is the difference between a motivated seller and just a normal seller. Now, when I first became a real estate broker in the New York area, in the early 90s, that was one of the main things my broker taught me, is the difference between somebody who's just thinking they have to sell, or they want to sell, they want to test the market, and then there are people that have to sell. If you focus on the people that have to sell, and you don't go about getting them by pushing that they have to work with you, and you give the discount on your, your commission, or you do, the cheapest wholesaling. Most people are not really looking for that. They're looking to build relationships with people they feel comfortable with. So your goal is to present yourself in a way that people will become comfortable with you. And I always say, once you understand the people that have to sell, and those are usually people that have been relocated, people that have properties that they no longer want, whatever reason it may be. They're tired of tenants. A family member left them the property and they no longer want it. Maybe they lost a job and now they can't afford the mortgage, or they went through a divorce. They can't afford to keep the home. And so they want to shy away from foreclosures. But in this pandemic, this coronavirus that we're seeing, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to end up with properties when this is all over because there was death in the family. In New York alone, there are over, I would say, 10,000 deaths so far. In Atlanta, there's a few thousand there. Anywhere in the USA, you are seeing a high rate of death because of this pandemic. And so people that are going into the hospital, not everybody has a will or, has prepared themselves that they're going to pass away. Some people, the state is going to end up with their homes. Attorneys are going to be assigned these homes, and then there's going to be family members that end up with these homes. And if you have promoted yourself as somebody in real estate, and so one of the things that I coach people to understand is that you are a brand. It doesn't matter if you got into real estate 2 seconds ago, if you're thinking of getting into real estate, but once you make a decision you want to be an investor or you want to be a real estate agent or broker, you are now a brand. And the more you promote you and you promote your who you are, most people want to feel that they're doing business with somebody they know, that they're comfortable with. So it is like dating somebody. You don't want to present like this fake person and then the person falls in love with you and now you got to go to being your real self, and they feel like, oh my God, this is not who I connected with. So when you present yourself, those that want to do business with you will choose you, and that's very important. But in this pandemic, they're saying it's going to be over in another 3 months to a couple of months, depending on where in the United States you are or where in the world you are. But now is the time to start marketing yourself and just sharing information. So one of the things that I would like to see people understand is that real estate, there's going to be a lot of opportunities, expired listings, foreclosures, pre-foreclosures. So many people have lost their jobs, and I know that in most states they're being told that they will have time to, work out the mortgage. There are so many companies that aren't even lending. Chase put out this notice that they're not even giving money right now to loans unless you have 20% and excellent credit. So you're going to see a lot more of that. And so building relationships with the right preferred lenders that are opening up loans. And I would really say connect with Anthony Williams, and because that's who I do 99% of my loans with, and he's got the preferred lenders more than you can imagine. And why do I say you need preferred lenders? Because you're going to be exposed to a lot of available properties very shortly, and people are going to go to the people that are sharing the information that can help them. And so one of the reasons I wanted to do this training on probate is because there's going to be so much of it that people won't have the opportunity to figure it out on their own. So you want to connect with people like myself that want to help you. But the first thing you want to understand that probate is simply a piece of property that passes through the court. It passes through the court. And sometimes it passes out of the court. So you have to learn to promote yourself in different ways. I don't know if I'm going to get to the promotion part today. I'm probably going to do a 2 or 3 part series on this training because I want you to really get all of this. And I'm offering this training for free. And it's, for some of the people I coach and mentor, it is a bonus training in one of my programs, but I want you to really get this because I think it's going to be helpful to the person that implements this stuff and understands it, which is going to make it easier for those like myself that have been in the industry for a while to not have to fix problems that other people have created. So you want to understand that property that passes through the court, but the person does have a deed, or they have, not a deed, but they've left a will. And if it's going through the court, then it's called probate. It is called probate. But now if they go through the court and there's a will, it's called testate. Testate. If they do not have a will, it's in-state. So interstate. But both of them still have to go through the courts. There's always probate in all of the United States. Some states, the process is the same, but the time frame is different. So once you understand the process, the time frame is different. And so you always want to know what part of the stage of the process, where in the process is the person that you're dealing with? Where in the process are they with this deal? And then you also, as an investor, won't get caught up putting money out to hold on to a property that you're feeling you can wholesale, thinking that they're at step 9 when they're only at step 1. That can make a big difference in how your money's tied up and how quickly you can wholesale and how you have to find your buyers. Now, if you're listing this because you're an agent, it's also going to make a difference in where they are in the process, because depending on how long your listing is and how soon you get offers, it's going to make a difference in how quickly you can get paid. So the court allows you to decide who gets the property when it's got a will. The will is the person puts in the will exactly how it's going to be handled. You've heard the terms executor, administrator, things of that sort. When the court has it's considered a contract. The will is a contract, and they have to honor it because it determines who the beneficiary is. So I've gotten some people me and say, my mom or my dad died, and now we have this property. Or some people say, my mom's on her deathbed, and I know that we're going to have to deal with this property. What do I need to do? Because, I can't even go visit her in the hospital right now, but I know, I'm going to have to end up dealing with this. So you want to guide them through this. And the first thing that I tell people is, number one, communicate the best way you can. I've had people in the hospital recently. One was my son, and we had to FaceTime before we could see each other. The pandemic is going to have you really become more creative in how you communicate with people. You don't have to see people. I did a training about a month ago, and I shared with how you can still wholesale properties in other states and how you can have the homeowner do the video for you. You still have to look at property. So the number one thing that people have to look out for is they're going to have to see if there's a will. If the will has not been done, nothing's going to happen really until that death certificate is available, because the courts need proof that this person has passed on. And what's going to happen is in whatever state you're in, they give you the guidelines that they want. So you are always able to go to your county court, the court. You can go online and find some of this information. When I first started dealing with probate, I would literally go to the courthouse. Usually all the records are in the basement. It is free to go in there. And people, when you're kind to them, they're very helpful. You can spend a lot of time in there though. And so you get the addresses, you get as much information as you can. You can, get somebody to skip trace the phone numbers. I personally prefer to just send people letters, and there's different types of letters, templates that I've created over the years that I feel work very well, and my students think they work very well. But you want to just send a letter, or if you get the phone number, you want to call. You can also get emails and contact people, but you don't want to just contact to say, I know your family member passed away and da-da-da-da. You want to let them know that, start off with saying something casual, like, I saw that, there was death in the family. I just was reaching out to see if I can offer any help. I'm an expert in this area. Nobody knows if you're an expert or not. And this is why I say it's very important to create relationships, because if you're not an expert, like when I first got in real estate, as a real estate investor, I found the number one real estate investor, and then I paid him to coach me, so when I didn't know what to do, I could call him and he could guide me. When I wanted to become an agent, I interviewed 8 brokers that had successful offices in the Queens and Long Island area, and they told me who trained them. And so I reached out to this particular person, and I had him train me. Chuck McGill, I had him train me. I had Robert Allen, who came up with the no money down and all the creative financing people use, Train Me. So if you don't know the stuff, connect with somebody who does, that will reach out to you. And don't be afraid to offer them something, because if you do one, two, or three deals, after a while you won't need them as much. And now, but you still have that relationship. And then when deals you don't understand show up, you can connect with them. But the court orders are recorded, okay? And they're recorded so that the proceedings, because they're recorded, they end up taking time. Hey, Christine, happy to see you joining us. Thank you, sweetie. So you want to understand that the court process, court orders are needed for pretty much most of when somebody passes away. People will leave IRAs, they leave, hey there, Bobby. They leave IRAs, they leave money, they leave money in the bank, they leave cars, they leave, property. Now, normally with the cars and the property, the process is a little longer, again, depending on the state, because they need to see certain paperwork. If you have the death certificate, though, you can go to the bank and show with your power of attorney that you have the right, or that you're the beneficiary. So I want you to look at this training and see what are the things you need to put in place for your own family, but you also want to know this information so you could share it with other family members. So you want to make sure, again, that the number one thing is the people get the probate process, and they understand it, and you understand it. So the first thing that happens is an administrator or an executor or a personal representative. They handle the estate. Now, remember we talked about interstate and testate. If they have a will, then the will say who's the administrator or the executor, or, if they don't have the will, then the court will choose somebody, and they can choose anybody. It's not like the person that they choose is somebody that has these major degrees or has gone through expert real estate. You can take a quick course and become an administrator, but again, it's also based on the relationships you build with the courts and attorneys and things of that sort. So the first thing you want to make sure is that the court process, the representative is chosen by the court if there's no will. If there is a will is how the process we're talking about right now. The second part of the process is the person that has passed on is going to be called the deceased. The deceased would have left a will, and it's testate with their name, and they name the executor. So if there's no will, I mentioned before, then the court appoints somebody. So the first part of the process is that the probate paperwork is filed with the court. They know that the person has passed away, there's a property, then they start the filing with the court. That is done by the administrator or the executor. Now, once they file the paperwork, that could take some time. There's going to be thousands of probate properties, so you've got to be patient, but you've got to stay in there, because the payoff and the help you'll be giving people is extremely, extremely helpful. And so what happens is once the paperwork is filed, the second process is the executor is officially appointed by the court. Now the court accepts your executor. I've had deals that have gone like that through probate, and then I've had some deals that have taken over a year to go through probate, because in some states, the way the will is written, all the family members that were ever connected to that home have to be notified. And so in some, it's no matter what happens, the will is whoever they appointed in the will, and that's it. So the second part, as I mentioned before, is that the executor is officially appointed. And If not, then the court will appoint somebody. Then the third part of the process is they post the probate bond to make sure that the executor will fulfill the desires that are in the will of the state that the property was in. So you could live in Atlanta, but the property's in New York, so the New York laws are what you have to go by. Number 4, the executor gets the official letter from the court saying that they've been, now they're the administrator. Again, this is if they've not been appointed in the will, but it becomes official with the court. And then the court gives them the power to handle everything in the estate. Okay, whatever property the person who died, the deceased, left, now that person can handle it. Number 5, what they start doing is they locate everything connected to the deceased, the bank accounts, the cars, everything. And they make sure they have all of that collected. Then they prepare everything and they submit everything they've collected to the court. The court then approves the inventory that they filed. That's what it's called. Everything that they put together is called inventory, whether it's property, the car, and all the stuff I listed before. It could be jewelry, whatever it is, it's called the inventory. So then they have to record that. After they do that, part 7 of the process is that they notify all the creditors. So they notify all the creditors to let them know that, the person is deceased and whatever's owed, they have very limited time to file. It's like a bankruptcy. When you file a bankruptcy, they notify all your creditors, and your creditors now have to prove that this money's owed, how much money they're owed, and then they have to send to the court your bill of whatever they're claiming the estate owes them. And so once that's done, they start to liquidate the assets. Only the administrator, the executor, does this. The 8th part is they start to liquidate the assets. Now is when they can say, okay, we're going to list the house, or we're going to find an investor to buy it cash because we just want to get rid of it. Part 9 of the process is now they look to see if the deceased owed any taxes. So once the assets are sold, the first person that's paid is the taxes, because the administrator, executor, or a person appointed by the court, they now file taxes on behalf of the person that is deceased. And so if the person owed any taxes, they're paid off first. After that, anything that's remaining, then they start paying off whatever is involved, including whatever cash has been left. And then they will go ahead and disperse the remaining amount to all parties involved. So that's the process. It's pretty much 10 steps, but they can take as quickly as a couple of months to a few years. Now, what you want to do is you want to start marketing and putting yourself out there. Most people, what they're doing now is they're falling back because of the quarantine. And what you want to do is start sharing information. Start posting things that let people know that you are in real estate. You don't have to put, I'm looking for people with probate. But you can put, I was on a real estate training today. I love real estate. Simple posts like that. And then you also want to reach out to people. You have friends, you have family members. You want to reach out to them and a simple conversation like, hey, I was just checking in. I was just calling to see how you're doing. Like, how's everything going? You'd be surprised. My son was in a car accident. Most of you know that if you follow me on social media. And one of the things that happened is, even in bed, People are calling saying, this person just passed away. I'm getting those calls. People are texting me. I'm in California. A family member has died in this part of Atlanta or that part of New York. And, we need to know what are the steps. And again, the first thing you want to make sure, because nothing's going to happen without that death certificate. So you want to make sure that people are aware that they're going to need to have that. And if there is a will, you want to know. Most people know if they're in the will already. Most people know if they've been, who's the executor or who has the power of attorney. So you want to get them to get that information. It'll make the process go faster. And if you have relationships with financing, you have access to money, you're going to be one of the people that can help a lot of people. But if you don't, you definitely want to build a list of investors that definitely can close in this time. The great thing about working with people in the probate system, what are the 10 steps again? Okay, so I'm going to recap really quickly. Step 1, and for those that are coming last, you can watch this replay. But Sheena, the steps are: 1, an administrator or an executor or personal representative is the person who's going to handle the estate. And if there's a will, then the will determine who that person is. But nobody, if there's a will and nobody's been named, then the court will choose a representative. Part 2 of the process, then the deceased will if they died with the will, then they name their own executor, and then the courts will acknowledge that person. The courts will acknowledge that person. So the first thing is that the will is authenticated. So the will, hi there, Bobby. So the will is authenticated, because anybody can say, oh, I left a will. And that process can be the most time consuming, because I know in parts of Georgia, if the wills were written, like say in the 1950s or the 1960s, you'd be surprised how many people have everybody in the family lived in this one house, and then they branched off and got their own homes, or the family helped each other get homes. So you might have a mom that had 2 children, and she left the will to one of the children, but the way the will was written is that everybody's entitled, including the children's children's children. I had a situation where the will was like that, and all 28 people had to be notified. Sometimes there's 6 people, 6 siblings, all 6 have to be notified. So as that process is going through, they're authenticating the will. In other words, saying that this will has been filed in the court with the probate court. That's where it is filed. And this person died and the will is legitimate. This is a legitimate will. After that is done, the executor is officially approved based on what the will said. The courts will approve that person. Okay, now then that person will post a bond to make sure that the executor fulfills all the things that are put in the will. So that's step 3. Step 4 is the executor gets the official letter from the court saying that they've been, officially appointed, and that they have to follow the guidelines of the will based on what the laws of the state that the property was in. Doesn't matter where the kids live, where the rest of the family lives. It's based on where the property that they're dealing with is located. Part 5 is then they locate all the assets of the deceased. The person that's died, they don't call them a John Doe, they call the person the deceased. So that deceased person now, they start looking for all that person's assets, the car, everything that this person had, bank accounts, if there's any job benefits, they look for all of that. After they get all of that, they put what's called an inventory, and they submit it to the court. They file everything in the assets with the court. That's part 6. The executor does that. So your goal is to build a relationship with the executor. I can't tell you how many investors will come to me and they're fighting the executor, and so the deal doesn't go anywhere. Because you have to remember, sometimes when people are the executor, they're not only dealing with the death of a family member, they have siblings they may not have gotten along with, they have family members they may not have gotten along with. And then sometimes the court will elect somebody that's a family member, but that person is so distant that the family doesn't even get along or know that person. So the family's upset that this person's been appointed. Your goal is you're really juggling all these personalities, and you're keeping them calm. And this is why I do a training on personality types, because it's so important that you don't let them frustrate you, and that you see yourself as a mental nurse of some sort, because you're basically getting people to be balanced and you're educating them through the process. As you keep educating them, they will handle things a lot easier. After the assets have been filed, which is number 6 with the court, then number 7 is that the courts will now notify all the creditors, and the creditors can claim against the estate of the deceased person for what they feel is owed to them. Number 8, the executor will now begin to liquidate the assets. They have permission from the courts to now liquidate those assets. That's why the person has to submit this inventory to the court, because it's the court that will say that this has to be liquidated. And when they do that, that is when you can list the real estate, you can buy the real estate, you can, close quickly on the deal as an investor. And then, number 9, the executor or the administrator or the court-appointed person will make sure that the taxes of the deceased have been filed. That's step 9. And if they owe any taxes, then the taxes have to be paid. And then after that, anything after that remains after the taxes are paid, it's distributed between any survivors or people that are named in the will. And again, the will is very, very important. So I always ask for a copy of the will. Having the will is very, very important, because sometimes the will say that, let's say it's a couple, there's a right of survivorship. So it will say that everything that the spouse had is now left to whoever is still alive, and they get everything. So they now have the right to sell it or keep it. I'm dealing with a lady in upstate New York right now. Her husband passed away before this pandemic, and she was like, please, I want to work with you, but can you give me a month? It's just so fresh that my husband passed away. And my kids and I, none of us want this house. We really want you to have it, but we need some time. It's just been too much. The house is just sitting there. It's been paid off. We don't want it. And then you'll have some people that will say, what do I need to do? Guide me through this. So I really want you to get to be a person that offers service to people, and you don't approach them with like, I do probate and I'm the number 1 real estate person. I'm the best investor. I've been in the business for 1,000,000 years. I can do everything, because they don't care about that. People don't care what you know till they know that you care. So you want to really just let them know that you're there to guide them. And I usually will tell people, I'll help you, even if, we don't end up working together. I'm hoping that my experience in the industry will be fruitful for you. So any questions that you have, and as you're helping people, they end up selecting you to work with them because you've built a relationship of some sort. I have a young lady that she lives in a part of Florida. I'm trying to think of the part. It's like the borderline of Fort Lauderdale, and she has a property in Atlanta. And, we've gone through so much with this probate. And she's like, I don't care how long this takes. I want you to have the property. But what's happened is, as we're going through this process, we started at one price and she's come down because I've helped her so much. And sometimes people in this situation, they don't have the money for everything they have to do court-wise. These filings take money, and sometimes they don't have it. So there's so many ways you can help people. And then there's some people that have everything they need, and they just need the guidance. They need the guidance. I had another man in a part of Georgia, and his father left the property to him and his brother. He's a very high-profile executive in California, and he's like, I don't want the property, but if you're gonna, handle everything for me, then I will be happy to speak with you. And as long as this is what we need to get. My brother wants this amount from it. I want this amount. And if we can get this and divide what we need to between ourselves, we're ready to move on. And so those are the things you want to look at. So again, you need the will. You need to know that there is a will. You need the death certificate, and you need to see how the deed is read. Because sometimes investors, they feel they have the deal, and then when they get the deed, it's already been turned over to somebody else or somebody. So these are the things you want to look out for. You also want to focus on marketing and talking to family members. And letting them know, listen, I know there's going to be a lot of probates coming up in the near future. If you know anybody that I can help, I'll be happy to help them. Or you can just share at different places that this is what you know how to do, and you handle this very, very well. You can also reach out to attorneys. Real estate attorneys are definitely people that are going to have a lot of probates available in a minute. How do you find out who the executive administrator of the court appointed? That's written when you go down. When you look up the property, it will tell you who the executor is. I have a list that I subscribe to, and because I don't have time anymore to go sit in the court, so I have a list, and I know people that sell the list, and the list will have on there who the executor is, and you can write or call the executor or send them an email. The goal is you want to get into communication with that family member, with that person, as quickly as possible. So the executor is always written when I like to send letters. I like to find the email, and I have a person that skip traces, and they find the phone number. If I get the phone number, I will call people, and you'd be surprised. Some people text you back. And I never lead in with, I saw your property in the courthouse and blah, blah, blah. I never lead with that. I tell people that it's come to my attention, or because people will ask you, how did you find out? And sometimes I tell them it's public knowledge, and I'm just here to see how I can help you. And your goal is to reach out to a few people. And what's going to happen is somebody's going to want to work with you. One deal alone that you help somebody in a probate is so much more than some of the deals that you find in abandoned properties. And, there's so many ways to wholesale. Most people come to me to learn how to wholesale. And I have found that people that are you have property that's been left to them are easier to